I love my podcast, Gerard. I was went for an early run this morning and I was listening to my favourite podcast, which is the Bill Simmons podcast. Now, just a bit of background. Bill Simmons is a big fan of our very own Josh Giddey, who, of course, is the point guard in the NBA and just making just a great name for himself at Oklahoma and progressing really nicely. But he's had a flat start to the year. Here is Bill Simmons' latest on Josh Giddey.
I want to see what's going on with Josh Giddey in about 2 weeks, whether it looks different than it has for the first couple weeks here. He's not going to the free throw line at all. 1.3 a game, 26% 3-point shooting, which we knew he can't shoot threes. But there's also like the Chet piece of it seems like it's throwing him off. And I've watched games where they've taken him out at crunch time. I just thought he would make a leap, and it feels like he's gone backwards. And it's not just statistically, just eye test wise. They seem very comfortable when he's not out there.
I thought he would make a leap, but it feels like he's gone backwards, which had me thinking about the players who desperately need to make that leap next year. So we all thought Josh Giddey or those that watch the NBA would make that leap, but sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes you get to a level and you stay there, and that's who you are, and you never make that leap. So 1-300-736-736. So I went home and I've written some names about players that I think desperately need to take the next step next year. I've got Max King. Gerard, Max King?
That's a good start.
Is this just what he is? Is Max King a player who's capable of kicking 4 or 5 3 times a year, and then for the rest he's a reasonably inconsistent sort of forward who has his moments and can let you down in front of goal? Of course, he needs a good run at it with his body. He needs to work on his kicking. But is he good enough to make the leap into an All-Australian team and be in contention?
And I think that's the bar.
Yeah, and to be in contention to win a Coleman medal. So in Tom Hawkins' 6th season, he made a giant leap, Tom Hawkins, and this is King's 6th season. Hawkins kicked 62 goals. He took 54 contested marks and he had 19 goal assists, and he made the first of his 5 All-Australian teams in 2012. Now, they're not the same player. I get that. You clearly just look at them. They're not the same player, but they play the same position, and King has all the talent. So that's the sort of numbers that I think Max King is capable of and needs to make that leap this year.
And if the Saints are going to, be a top 4 side under Ross, they need him to. As what was he drafted? Was he number 1 or is he in the top 2 or 3?
He was. He had that. I think he had the knee injury in his first year, so he didn't play. He was sort of in the top 5 of that super draft. It was a Sam Walsh, Rosie draft.
Okay, so very much part and parcel though of the Saints being a power.
Definitely. The second one is Cam Rayner. So Cam Rayner's coming into his 7th year. He was a pick 1.
He was
24 years of age, and he is entering his absolute prime. And now, to be fair to him, I think he took a step forward this year, highlighted by his devastating qualifying final against Port. I thought he was excellent. Finished top 5 in Brisbane's best and fairest in a grand final team.
Pretty good leap.
That's a good effort. But I didn't call it a leap. I called it a step. It's time for a leap now. So I think he's as close as anyone to DeGoey, Martin, Petrarca, and at times he's touched that level, but he hasn't been able to maintain that. I want to know if he's fit enough. I want to know if he works hard enough, but he's definitely got the talent to make that leap and progress to I think his ceiling is a top 10 player in the game. That's where I see him.
Yep.
But he hasn't done that yet. Matt Rowell is always a divisive one. Whenever I speak about Matt Rowell, I get heavily criticised because he plays at a high level every week. But my interest is in whether that's his ceiling. So is Matt Rowell 21 touches, 8 tackles, and 6 clearances a game for the rest of his career, or is he Lockie Neal? Can he do it? Can he get to 28 touches, and can he kick more than 7 goals in a season, which is what he got this year? And can he break away and actually really hurt the opposition with his legs and with his disposals, or is he just Ben Cunnington, which is a nice level, it's a good level to play at, and he'll play 300 games and all of that. But he's not.
If you did the draft again, though, would Tom Green be in front of him?
Yeah.
Was Tom Green a leap or a step this year? Because a pretty good effort.
I'd call that a leap.
He was pretty solid.
He touched the ball more than any other player in the game.
Yeah.
Tom Green. So he's well on his way to being $1 million player. Aaron Norton, now he's got to improve significantly. The Bulldogs are paying him superstar money for average to good performance. In 11 games this year, he kicked 1 goal or less. So 11 times he was 1 goal or less. And if Cody Waitman hadn't missed 4 games, he would have beaten him for the Bulldogs goal kicking award. And this guy's 177 centimetres tall. And if you sat down or anyone sat down, Gerard, and did your list of top 50 players in the game, Norton he wouldn't be there. So for him, I think for him to go to the leap, it's got to be squad of 44 in the All-Australian team. That's what he's capable of.
Going to put a goal number on it, or did you?
So 44, what did he kick? He kicked 40-odd this year, 41 I think it was.
It's still a pretty good return.
It's okay, but that's small forward numbers. Like Cody Waitman nearly kicked that, and he played 4 less games than Norton. So I think it's got to be in the 60s. For him, like Toby Green kicked 59, I think. So I would think that's about the number for Aaron Norton, particularly with the supply that he's going to get. And finally, number 5, this is the players who, off the back of Josh Giddey not quite taking that giant leap that we all expected, which players need to. I've got Cozzy Pickett written down because I think his last 3 seasons have been good, but they've been at the same level. So Pickett's at the same level he was in year 2 as to what he is now. And he's closing in on 100 games.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I sat in the All-Australian meetings, maybe 4 or 5 of them for the year, and we are crying out for someone to put their hand up and say, I am the best small forward in the competition. Because right now, I couldn't tell you who that is. And we were umming and ahhing about where it sat in the All-Australian meeting. And honestly, it came down to the last 2 weeks of the year.
And which was Charlie.
Yeah. And I'm going, well, there's got to be someone who's ready just to go, okay, here I am. I'm Eddie Betts. I'm the best small forward in the game. And it's got to be this guy. So he finished 7th in Melbourne's best and fairest, which isn't a disaster by any means. Kicked 37 goals, which also isn't a disaster. But he's got to be All-Australian. All-Australian for Cozzy Pickett. He's good enough to do that. Had some ordinary moments with his discipline this year. And I think he's capable of doing that. So there's
was part and parcel of the whole Melbourne story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, they've still got 3 or 4 there that are they're on the way, but they need to have them all come together as one.
There is my 5 of the players that and who at your club? You would know it better than me. Who do you think? And I thought about a lot of players. I thought about Josh Rochelle at Adelaide. That was a bit early for him.
Yep.
So it's like those players that have been around for a little bit, entering the prime of their careers, year 5, 6, 7.
Rankin's the one that should bob up and answer your questions, and he probably was until halfway through the season. He looked at me as if he was the best small forward in the game, and then he just trailed off a little bit. But he's the one who's still got another level. He's going really well. He's a fantastic player, but he set such a high bar. But if he's going to be like an all-time great, he needs to put those great games together on more often than he is at the moment.
Well, he could be that, Gerard. He could easily be in contention as the best small forward in the game. There's no doubt about it. Now, Derm, the AFL draft is coming up, so not next week. It'll be the following week. And club greats are going to present draftees with their jumpers on the opening night of the draft. We've seen it in part. So we saw Lordo hand his jumper over to Sardis last year, and they want to make this a thing. So I wanted to ask you, if you were a young draftee about to get drafted and you're going to the Hawthorn Footy Club, you're doing it all over again, who is the Hawthorn great that you would like to be presented with your jumper by for the first time as a Hawthorn player? Is there one that stands out? I mean, there's millions you could choose from, but
Hawthorn are pretty lucky. They've had some of the greatest of all time. Well, every team's got some greats, yeah. But Lee's the obvious choice.
Lee's the one for you.
Yeah. Lee's the one that everyone at Hawthorn. So you'll get some clubs where you canvass 10 league footballers at a club, like Port Adelaide. Who's the best player you've ever had? It'll come down to Treaders, it'll go to Robbie Gray.
And Robbie Gray, the 3 that stand out.
Okay, so you've pulled out 3.
Yeah.
So you pull out 10 players right now, and that'll be mixed opinion on them. Hawthorn, for a team that's had such great players, you canvass 10 players, and they won't even think about it.
Right.
They'll just go Lee.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to say surname.
So
Lee.
Is there another club, and we'll get our audience involved in this, that has that same fact? So Is there the one player from a club like Lee that is just the person, the one, or is it more a debate about who it is? Like even go to Collingwood. Is it Buckley? Is it Pendlebury? Is it Tony Shaw for that leadership sort of fact? Like you'd love Shawry to present you with.
Well, if I was going to Collingwood at my age, though, it would be fabulous Phil Carman.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought we'd work our way through who you would love to present if you're from your team getting drafted in the following next what is it, Thursday week or something like that, which club great would you like to receive your jumper from?
So what about you?
Yeah, well, I think it would be like it's hard to go past Wanganeen, so that would Wanganeen for me, but there's a but there. I just love Robbie Gray. Now Robbie Gray is more from not sort of my generation. He's probably 5 or 6 years younger than me, but I
You
had an armchair
overlapped
ride.
the era.
Yeah, I had an armchair ride to what he did, and I just don't feel like Robbie Gray gets the credit for what he's done. So he would be a terrific one as well, and there'd be a lot of Port Adelaide players that would like to receive their jumper from him. But we'd love your thoughts on that. 0433 98 11 16. Send up Gary Ablett Jr. to the Suns. He could probably do a couple of clubs.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one because he's probably the greatest player they've had there.
Yeah.
Some people are going to hate this. Does it? Yeah, that's not a good preface, is it?
That's okay.
Does it affect that a memory of him in view for the club, given the fact that the reason he went there was money?
Mm.
And then he left when he'd had enough. Does that affect
His
the legacy that he left behind? Given and it sounds crass, and he did brilliantly when he was there, and he gave them great service, and he was out on the ground. From what I've heard, he mightn't have played every game that he probably could have. He wouldn't play with an injury. He refused. He said he'd get it better first, which is not our, well, my era especially. You played, if you were 60% fit, you were out there. And then you'd expect to go to 65 the next week.
So if it's not Gary, who else? Like if we're going to go through the clubs, who is it? Is it Took Miller? Like I love what he's done.
Yeah, right now, the current days.
I don't know if you can have a current player, but in terms of the old retired players at the Suns, have to
Well,
be
for
Gary.
a young team, well then okay. If you get to go to
Giants.
the Giants, who is it? Is it Mummy or Toby for me?
Well, I think they've got some like Heath Shaw. Phil and Heath Shaw would be good ones for me.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant players, and Phil's just a statesman of the game,
Heart and
isn't he?
soul type players. Like the number one would be Toby Green. But
Yet Shane was the heart and soul of the
you think
place.
so? Yeah.
Yeah, having been up there.
Right.
Oh, they revolved around him. Toby's taken the leadership now and done brilliant things with the leadership now, but the player that they all had to gravitate around, the player that was the nucleus of it, was Shane. And that was his third club.
Yeah, I know. So it's remarkable the
Work
influence
that
that he
out.
had. I know.
Yeah.
So if you're a Blues fan, I mean, for me, it would just be. Well, I think we might have the same. For Carlton, who would it be? Like if you're a young kid.
I'm older than you, so
I know, but
no, Jezza.
Okay, I'd go Sticks. I think Steve to get up
Great
there
man,
with
yeah.
Sticks to present you. Look, I think it's excellent what the AFL are doing. How they go about deciding which club legend does it is going to be interesting because, as Derm says, there's plenty of options for many clubs. At Fremantle, we'd have Matthew Pavlich, but there's some other good options there.